In 2022, Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, a company he didn't found, earned a jaw-dropping $99 million in total compensation. That's more than 1,400 times the salary of the average Apple employee. But Cook isn't alone. Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Alphabet, Google's parent company, took home $226 million in the same year, despite not being one of Google's original founders. And then there's David Zaslav, the CEO of Warner Bros. Discovery, who made $246 million in 2021, largely from stock options and bonuses. These aren't founders who built their companies from the ground up. They're hired executives, yet their paychecks rival the GDP of small nations. Meanwhile, the average worker in the U.S. earned just $56,000 in 2022, a fraction of what these CEOs make in a single day. But why? What justifies these astronomical paychecks? And what does this growing disparity mean for society? In this documentary, we'll explore the complex world of executive compensation, uncovering the reasons behind these eye-watering salaries and the consequences they bring. Chapter 1. The Rise of CEO Pay. To understand why non-founder CEOs like Tim Cook and Sundar Pichai are paid so much today, we need to look back at how executive compensation has evolved. In the early 20th century, CEOs were well paid, but their salaries were modest compared to today's standards. For example, in the 1950s, the average CEO earned about 20 times more than the average worker. Fast forward to the 1980s, and the landscape began to change dramatically. The 1980s marked the beginning of the CEO superstar era. Deregulation, globalization, and the rise of Wall Street created a new breed of corporate leaders. CEOs were no longer just managers, they were seen as visionaries, the driving force behind a company's success. This shift in perception led to a surge in executive pay, fueled by stock options, bonuses, and other incentives. Stock options became a popular way to align the interests of CEOs with those of shareholders. The idea was that if the company's stock price went up, the CEO would benefit, and so would the shareholders. But over time, this led to a focus on short-term gains rather than long-term growth, and CEO pay skyrocketed as a result. Chapter 2. The Justification for High Pay. Proponents of high CEO pay argue that these executives are worth every penny. They point to the immense responsibility CEOs carry, the pressure to deliver results, and the competitive nature of the global market. But is this justification valid? CEOs like Tim Cook and Sundar Pichai are responsible for making decisions that affect thousands of employees, billions of dollars in revenue, and the future of entire industries. The skills required to navigate this complexity are rare, and companies are willing to pay a premium for top talent. But critics argue that this logic is flawed. They point out that CEO pay has risen far faster than company performance, suggesting that the link between pay and performance is tenuous at best. Studies have shown that there's little correlation between CEO pay and company performance. In fact, some of the highest-paid CEOs have led their companies to financial ruin, while others have presided over layoffs and declining stock prices. Chapter 3. The Role of Corporate Board. One of the key factors driving high CEO pay is the role of corporate boards. These boards, which are supposed to represent the interests of shareholders, are often made up of other CEOs and high-level executives. This creates a culture of mutual back-scratching, where board members approve lavish pay packages for their peers. Corporate boards are supposed to act as a check on executive power, but in reality, they often rubber stamp whatever the CEO wants. This is because many board members are themselves CEOs or former CEOs, and they have a vested interest in maintaining the status quo. This lack of accountability has led to a situation where CEO pay continues to rise, regardless of performance. And with shareholders often more focused on short-term gains than long-term sustainability, there's little pressure to rein in executive compensation. Chapter 4. The Impact on Society. The growing disparity between CEO pay and worker wages has far-reaching consequences. It contributes to income inequality, erodes trust in corporations, and undermines the social fabric. When the average worker sees their CEO earning hundreds of times more than they do, it's hard not to feel undervalued and exploited. This isn't just about fairness. It's about the kind of society we want to live in. When CEOs are paid millions while their workers struggle to make ends meet, it sends a message that some people are worth more than others, and that's a dangerous message. Moreover, high CEO pay can have a negative impact on company morale and productivity. Studies have shown that when employees feel that their work is not valued, they are less motivated, less loyal, and less productive. Chapter 5. The Global Perspective. The issue of CEO pay is not unique to the United States. In countries around the world, executive compensation has been on the rise, though the gap between CEOs and workers is often smaller than in the US. In Europe, for example, CEO pay is typically much lower, and there's a greater emphasis on social responsibility and worker rights. In Europe, we believe that a company's success should be shared by all its stakeholders, not just the executives at the top. This approach leads to a more balanced distribution of wealth and a stronger sense of community within the company. But even in Europe, the trend is toward higher CEO pay as companies compete for top talent in a globalized economy. The question is, can this trend be reversed, or is it an inevitable consequence of modern capitalism? Chapter 6. Possible solutions. So, what can be done to address the issue of excessive CEO pay? Some argue for government intervention, such as higher taxes on executive compensation or stricter regulations on corporate governance. Others believe that change must come from within, through shareholder activism and greater transparency. We need to rethink the way we compensate CEOs. Instead of rewarding short-term gains, we should focus on long-term sustainability and social responsibility. This means tying CEO pay to broader metrics, such as employee satisfaction, environmental impact, and community engagement. Another approach is to empower workers by giving them a greater say in corporate decision-making. In some countries, workers have seats on corporate boards, ensuring that their voices are heard and their interests are represented. The issue of CEO pay is complex, and there are no easy answers. But one thing is clear: the current system is unsustainable. As the gap between the rich and the poor continues to grow, the need for change becomes ever more urgent. Whether through government action, corporate reform, or grassroots activism, it's up to all of us to demand a fairer, more equitable system, one that values the contributions of every worker, not just those at the top. Thank you for watching. What do you think about CEO pay? Share your thoughts in the comments below.